A very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. Now, the Indian Army is set for a major overhaul as government has cleared reforms to enhance Army's combat capability as well as to optimize its expenditure. That is the big focus this morning. Let us take a look at the other top stories in the headlines. Terror has no religion, says Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, says dangerous game afoot to link it with one faith or the other. .4% scrapped 1,000 notes that did not come back into the banking system post note ban, says RBI. Centre says objectives of the note ban met. Opposition calls exercise a failure. US President Donald Trump says talking is not the answer on reigning in North Korea. Japan pushes US to propose UNSC sanctions to cut off regime's oil supply. Worst not over yet, says Texas governor, as a Hurricane Harvey makes second landfall near Texas-Louisiana border. Rescue efforts on war footing as downpour continues. And the fourth ODI of the 5-match series between India and Sri Lanka in Colombo today. India have already sealed the series with a 3-0 lead. The top story this morning, the Union Cabinet has approved a reform process for the Indian Army. Now, in a first ever exercise after independence, Defence Minister Arun Jaitley has approved the process of reforms. Now, Jaitley said that 65 out of the 99 recommendations of the Schechter Committee have been accepted by the government. The panel was appointed to recommend measures to enhance combat capability of the armed forces. Now, the reform process will include restructuring of various repair bases of the Army, besides ensuring structural improvement of the National Cadet Corps. Meanwhile, the Cabinet also approved promulgation of an ordinance to amend the GST compensation law, paving the way for increasing cess on mid and large cars. The decision to increase the cess from 15% to 25% on mid and large-sized vehicles will be taken by the GST Council. Arun Jaitley further said that the increased cess would apply on motor vehicles for transport with a carrying capacity of not more than 13 persons, including the driver.
काउंसिल ने निर्णय किया था कि जो 2 कैटेगरीज व्हीकल्स हैं, ये सब व्हीकल्स पे लागू नहीं होगा, केवल 2 कैटेगरी पे होगा, जहां सेस की सबसे अधिक सीमा 15% थी, उस कैप को बढ़ाकर 25 कर दिया जाए। ये एनेबलिंग है, ये सुविधा प्रोवाइड करता है उस सेस को बढ़ाने की। सेस बढ़ाना है कि नहीं बढ़ाना किसी वाहन पे, ये निर्णय काउंसिल का रहेगा और काउंसिल के समक्ष आएगा।
On to the other top story, the Reserve Bank of India has confirmed that all but 1.4% of the old 1,000 rupee notes returned to the banking system post demonetization. Now, the central bank released the data in its annual report for the financial year 2016-17. This report said that out of the 632.6 crore pieces of 1,000 rupee currency notes in circulation, 623.7 crore were returned after the note ban. The report further said that the cost of printing of currency notes more than doubled in 2016-17 as compared to the previous year on account of new currency printing. The government replaced the old 500 rupee notes with new ones. While it did not replace the old 1,000 rupee notes, it introduced a new 2,000 rupee note instead.
Those dealing in cash currency were now compelled to deposit the money in the banks, and the anonymity which existed with regard to the ownership of this cash money operating in the system has come to an end. The money has now got identified with a particular owner. the expanded base of even indirect taxation, which is evident in the initial results, the deposits of the GST, is indicative of the fact that there are more and more transactions taking place within the system itself. So both the direct and the indirect tax base is unquestionably getting expanded, which was the prime object.
Meanwhile, the opposition launched a scathing attack on Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the demonetization exercise after Reserve Bank of India released its annual report. Now, former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram asked if the demonetization was a scheme designed to convert black money into white. Now, taking to Twitter, he said that 16,000 crore out of demonetized notes did not come back to the RBI. That is 1%. Shame on RBI, which recommended demonetization, unquote. CPIM General Secretary Sitaram Yechuri also attacked the government on Twitter, saying that India can never forgive Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government.
हमारे हिसाब से 105% करेंसी वापस आई है। इसमें तमाम फेक नोट जो हैं वो भी वापस आए। रिजर्व बैंक उसको छुपा रही। रिजर्व बैंक पूरी फिगर बताए कितनी, और तमाम नोट डिस्ट्रॉय हो गए होंगे आजादी के बाद अब तक। उन नोटों को वो अपने आप में कैसे जोड़ रहे हैं? दूसरा, फाइनेंस कमेटी के सामने है, उन्होंने कोई रिपोर्ट नहीं दी। कल हमारी फाइनेंस कमेटी ने इसी हमारी रिपोर्ट को अडॉप्ट नहीं किया। ये तो प्रिविलेज हो गया। हम फाइनेंस कमेटी के सामने रिजर्व बैंक गवर्नर के खिलाफ प्रिविलेज मूव करेंगे।
सच्चाई ये है कि 15,44,000 करोड़ सर्कुलेशन में थे, वो सारा पैसा आरबीआई में वापस जमा हो गया, मात्र 16,000 करोड़ को छोड़कर। नोट छपाई का खर्चा 21,000 करोड़ रुपया और वापस केवल नहीं आया 16,000 करोड़, और वो भी अभी एनआरआईज के खातों में और अदालत के पास जमा है। इसलिए जेटली जी, देश को बरगलाइए मत। मोदी जी को कहिए कि वो आगे आएं और देश से माफी मांगे।
Meanwhile, the Finance Ministry will take a final call on extending a PAN card linkage with Aadhaar today. Now, this comes as the cutoff date is going to end today. The deadline for linking PAN with Aadhaar previously was 31st of July, but it was extended to 31st of August. The Aadhaar matter is before the Supreme Court with the next date of hearing posted for November, while the deadline for Aadhaar linking of for availing various welfare schemes has been extended till end of December. On to some other news now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that apprehensions about GST have been proven to be unfounded and a smooth transition has happened. Now, while interacting with the Chief Secretaries through Pragati, he asked them to further boost efforts to increase the registration under the GST and achieve a quantum jump in this regard within a month. The Prime Minister also reviewed the progress towards handling and resolution of grievances related to patents and trademarks. He also reviewed the progress of 9 vital infrastructure projects in the railways, roads, power and oil pipeline and health sectors spread over several states. The Prime Minister also reviewed the progress of the Smart City missions as well as the Forest Rights Act. The Prime Minister emphasized the importance of using space technology to determine the right of tribal communities and settle claims expeditiously. This was the 21st meeting of Pragati. Now, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has raised concerns about the plight of people living below the poverty line. Delivering the APJ Abdul Kalam Memorial Lecture organized by the India Islamic Cultural Center in the national capital, the Vice President said that many great people contributed to India's freedom struggle and inspired the nation for years. But post-independence, he said that former President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was the only one who inspired every strata of society, especially the youth. The Vice President also emphasized that terrorism has no religion, but a dangerous game is afoot to link it with one faith or the other. He also stressed that no language should be attached with any religion. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu was also awarded the honorary membership of the IICC. The first APJ Abdul Kalam lecture was given by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley.
He is one of the loved leaders of the country, Dr. Abdul Kalam, one of the darling of the youth of the country, particularly the new generation. We had Gandhiji, we had Nehruji, we had Pandit Govinda Pant, we have Balganga Tilak, we have Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, we have Subhash Chandra Bose. We have so many great stalwarts who inspired the nation. But after independence, if one man has moved the nation, if you have to say one among the top, is Dr. Abdul Kalam. He made everybody to think. Let us be clear in our mind. Unfortunately, some people are connecting terror to this religion or that religion. No religion supports terror. Terrorist has no caste, creed, sex, religion or region. He is a terrorist. He is inhuman. That is the menace to the society. If you have tension, there cannot be attention toward development. The Indian people can rise well above the present poverty and contribute more productively to the country because of their own improved health, education and self-esteem. India can have considerable technological strengths, so crucial for its strategic strength and for economic and trade-related strengths.
Meanwhile, Union Home Secretary Rajiv Merushi has pointed out that the centre would not interfere in the ongoing terror funding probe in Jammu and Kashmir. The Home Secretary said that investigations by NIA go through a court process and they would arrest Hurriyat leaders if needed. He said that the centre is always ready for a dialogue in Kashmir. He also objected to the term Hindu terror and giving religious labels to terrorism. Merushi also clarified that there was no proposal to ban cross-border trade between the neighbouring countries. Merushi, a 1978 batch Rajasthan cadre officer, is demitting office today. And now an update on the BRICS summit, which is going to be held in China. Well, ahead of the summit, the new development bank of the 5-member group has approved a $1.4 billion loan for sustainable development projects in China, India and Russia. The board of directors of the bank have approved 4 infrastructure and sustainable development projects in the 3 countries. For India, the bank has approved $470 million loan for Madhya Pradesh's multi-village rural drinking water supply scheme project. Now, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi briefed the media on the upcoming BRICS summit next week that will be attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Wang Yi claimed that there is a huge potential for greater cooperation between China and India, which will help both the nations. Chinese President Xi Jinping will chair the BRICS summit in China's southeastern coastal city of Xiamen in Fujian province from 3rd to 5th of September.
将同金砖国家领导人一道就金砖合作和共同关心的问题深入的交换看法。会晤期间，中方还将举办新兴市场国家和发展中国家的对话会。金砖5国以及埃及、几内亚、墨西哥、塔吉克斯坦、泰国的领导人。
On to some other news now, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will travel to Colombo today to attend the 2-day Indian Ocean Conference. Now, during the visit, she will meet President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Sushma Swaraj will also hold a separate meeting with her Sri Lankan counterpart. Now, the theme of this year's conference is peace, progress and prosperity. More than 35 countries are participating in the conference. The first edition of the conference was held in Singapore last year. And India will launch its navigation satellite IRNSS-1H using the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle today. The satellite weighs around 1,425 kilogram and will replace IRNSS-1A as its atomic clocks have failed. Now, these atomic clocks are crucial to provide positional information to users on Earth. The launch will take place from the second launch pad of Satish Dhawan Space Centre at Sriharikota. The launch is slated at 7 p.m. today. Well, time to take a very short break. We'll be back with more news. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. News from Uttar Pradesh, where 61 children, mostly newborns, died in the last 72 hours at a government-run hospital in Uttar Pradesh's Gorakhpur district due to various causes. Now, in the last 24 hours alone, 19 children died at the Baba Raghav Das Medical College, 7 due to encephalitis. The rest were babies who died in the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. 290 children have died so far in the BRD Medical College in August itself. Now, Dr. P.K. Singh, the recently appointed working principal of the Medical College Hospital, said that there were 1,250 deaths since January, especially due to encephalitis, infants and in children's ward. On 29th of August, a UP Special Task Force arrested former principal of BRD Medical College, Rajiv Mishra, and his wife in connection with the 70 child deaths due to an alleged oxygen shortage and encephalitis.
पिछले 48 आवर्स में बीआरडी मेडिकल कॉलेज में 42 डेथ्स हुई हैं। इसमें एनआईसीयू में 16 डेथ्स हुई हैं और पीआईसीयू में 26 डेथ्स हुई हैं और 7 डेथ्स जो हैं एन्सेफेलाइटिस से हैं। रेस्ट डेथ्स जो हैं वो अदर पीडियाट्रिक डिजीजेस से हैं।
तमाम डॉक्टर जो हैं वो बच्चों का इलाज नहीं कर रहे हैं और वो सिर्फ कागज बनाने में लगे हुए हैं, जिससे कि मुख्यमंत्री के चहीते कहीं इस जांच की पड़ताल में न आ जाएं।
हम सबको इतना दर्द है, इतना दुख है जिसकी कोई सीमा नहीं हो सकती। शायद कि अन्य देश में ये हुआ होता तब तक हाहाकार मच गया होता। हम नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं कि मुख्यमंत्री जी के अगर गृह जनपद में उत्तर प्रदेश की ये दशा है तो पूरे प्रदेश की क्या दशा होगी।
It only shows that the priority of the government is not the health of the children, not the weeping mothers of these children, but elsewhere. And it is for this reason, I think, that the government is failing the people, the mothers and the children of this country.
And now an update on Mumbai rains. And after Tuesday's deluge, Mumbai is getting back on its feet as the rain waters are subsiding. The suburban train services resumed partially, much to the relief of those stranded at the station since Tuesday. Now, vehicular movement on the roads also improved, though flight operations remain largely affected. The heavy downpour and flooding claimed at least 10 lives and injured dozens. Meanwhile, the Santa Cruz Observatory of the IMD registered 331.4 millimeters of rainfall, which is the heaviest since the July 2005 record of 944 millimeters, which had caused the worst havoc in decades in the city.
Life in Mumbai moved towards normalcy on Wednesday, a day after the city was virtually paralyzed by heavy rains. Thousands of stranded commuters headed home with the partial resumption of suburban train services as the rain subsided.
कल दोपहर 12 बजे से यहीं पे हम लोग ये स्टेशन पे, बाकी तो थोड़ी बहुत तो दिक्कत तो सबको होती है, तो एडजस्टमेंट करने में फायदा है।
मैं अटकी हुई थी और अभी जस्ट सुबह घर पे जा रही हूँ। बहुत गंदा एक्सपीरियंस था एक्चुअली। अच्छा नहीं था एक्सपीरियंस कल का।
Road traffic that remained paralyzed on Tuesday due to waterlogging and high tide was also back to near normal. But vehicular movement was slow due to waterlogged roads. People stranded at different locations headed home after a harrowing time on Tuesday.
पूरा बम्बई घूमते आ रहे हैं हम लोग। जी हाँ पूरा भाईकल्ला, माटुंगा, जे भेंडी वजह पूरा पानी इतना कमर के ऊपर है।
Although the Met Department ruled out the possibility of heavy rains on Wednesday, government offices and educational institutions remained closed. The famous Dabba Walas of Mumbai also cancelled their delivery of over 2 lakh tiffins to office goers.
There has been a reduction in the rainfall activity in last 8 to 10 hours. Situation is likely to continue for some more hours like this. But because there is a lot of moisture incursion in Mumbai in last 24 hours, we are expecting that definitely there are chances of rainfall again picking up late in the afternoon, but the showers and intermittent showers will be there.
मुंबई के डब्बे वाले उस लोकल में अटके पड़े हुए थे। आज सुबह वो घर पे जा रहे हैं। खाली डब्बा अब तक घर पे नहीं पहुंचा है। अगर खाली डब्बा ही नहीं पहुंचा तो नया डब्बा हम भरेंगे किसमें?
Distressed citizens as well as opposition members blamed the BMC for their lack of preparedness.
अगर ऐसी कंडीशन रहेगी तो सब ठीक हो सकता है, लेकिन अगर आज और बारिश होएगा तो और ज्यादा दिक्कतें हो सकती है, क्योंकि बीएमसी का टोटल सिस्टम फेलियर हो गया था। कल हमने देखे जगह जगह में हम इतना पानी भरे थे, हमने ना बीएमसी का एक आदमी देखे ना पुलिस का एक आदमी था। सिर्फ लोकल वॉलंटियर्स लोग जहाँ ढक्कन खुला था उन लोग वहाँ खड़ा रह के उन लोग सबको सिटीजन्स को वार्न कर रहे थे।
2005 में जो बारिश हुई थी उससे अगर कल की बारिश की आप तुलना करें तो साफ साफ दिखता है कि प्रशासन ने कुछ नहीं सीखा। 12 साल हो गए उस हादसे को। अगर बीएमसी ने नालों के रुंदीकरण का, उसको चौड़ा करने का जो प्रोजेक्ट है ब्रिमस्टो वार्ड, उस प्रोजेक्ट को पूरी तरह से लागू किया होता तो पानी की निकासी और तेजी से हो सकती थी।
Following Tuesday's deluge, people in Mumbai opened their homes and hearts to strangers, offering assistance to those stranded in the floods. Stranded commuters were offered food and water at regular intervals.
This is the Indian Navy's initiative to provide as much of support possible to all the people who have been stranded because of the floods.
Navy helicopters were also kept on standby to meet any eventuality in view of further heavy rains, while the NDRF was also put on high alert. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also urged the people of Mumbai and surrounding areas to stay safe and take all necessary precautions while assuring help to the government of Maharashtra. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And rains are wreaking havoc not only in Mumbai but also in the United States. Tropical storm Harvey made a second landfall near the Texas-Louisiana border on Wednesday, prompting the Texas governor to say that the worst is not over yet. The hurricane, which is the worst Texas has seen in 50 years, has already claimed 30 lives and displaced 1,000 others.
The worst is not yet over, says Texas governor.
The rain that was received in the greater Harris County area has set an all-time record. Now that rain has moved to the Beaumont region in southeast Texas. Approximately 15 inches of rain have already fallen in the area, and there's more to come. The worst is not yet over for southeast Texas as far as the rain is concerned. There will be ongoing challenges both during the time that rain continues to fall as well as for approximately 4 days to a week to come.
Tropical storm Harvey made a second landfall near the Texas-Louisiana border on Wednesday. This 5 days after making the first, causing widespread destruction in which 30 people died and tens of thousands were rendered homeless. The U.S. National Weather Service has said some parts of Louisiana have seen more than a foot of rain, and the flash floods warnings were in effect for much of Lake Charles region as the rainfall is expected to continue. New Orleans was put under a tornado and flash flood watch until today. Houston has received more than 42 inches of rainfall so far.
I think it's catastrophic for everybody in Houston. I'm from here. I've never seen it. I lived in South Carolina for years and been through a lot of hurricanes. Never seen nothing like this before.
Texas has carried out more than 8,500 rescues and more than 32,000 people remain in shelters throughout the state. Another 10,000 members of the National Guard are on their way, joining the 14,000 already deployed to tackle the disaster. Refineries with output of at least 4.4 million barrels per day were offline on Tuesday, representing nearly 24% of US production. Damage has been estimated at tens of billions of dollars, making it one of the costliest US natural disasters.
Now we've lost probably between 3 and 4 million barrels a day of refining capacity. That will be the case for a couple days, I would expect. You'll have lingering effects from this storm for probably as long as 2 months. Generally speaking, when you have a refinery that goes into cold shutdown, it takes a good 10 to 20 days to bring that back up to full operational level.
US President Donald Trump, who visited Texas on Tuesday, declared a federal state of emergency in both Texas and Louisiana. The move releases emergency government funding and other assistance. Harvey was the most powerful hurricane to hit Texas in more than 50 years. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that talking is not the answer when it comes to reigning in North Korea. However, he seemed to contradict some of his top cabinet officials who insist that US will continue to seek a peaceful resolution to tensions with Pyongyang. Meanwhile, Japan is pushing US to propose new United Nations Security Council sanctions that could possibly cut off the regime's oil supply. Donald Trump says talking is not the answer in dealing with North Korea's military operations. In a Twitter message, US President said that the US has been talking to North Korea and paying them extortion money for 25 years. This comes a day after Pyongyang fired a ballistic missile over Japan and drew international condemnation.
We're obviously going to look at a whole range of different measures to put pressure on Pyongyang. And we will work with our allies, with other partners, with China and Russia to see what more we can do. And we will look at what we can do unilaterally.
However, US Defense Secretary James Mattis insisted that there was still room for diplomacy. His statement coming before a meeting with South Korean Defense Minister Song Yong-moo. The blow hot and blow cold strategy by Trump administration has invited criticism that US has no master plan with regard to Pyongyang, but officials suggest it is a part of a bigger plan to increase pressure on North Korea.
No, we're never out of diplomatic solutions. We continue to work together, and the minister and I share a responsibility to provide for the protection of our nations, our populations, and our interests.
Meanwhile, there are indications that US and its allies are also looking at further sanctions against North Korea that could possibly cut off the regime's oil supply. Japan is pushing US to propose new United Nations Security Council sanctions. This comes as UNSC condemned North Korea's outrageous firing of a ballistic missile over Japan but did not threaten new sanctions. However, for any sanctions to work, China's participation is an absolute must.
Well, as far as the drafting itself is concerned, of course, the PANhaar is the United States, but we obviously would like to discuss it with the United States. We would like to give some ideas if we have any new ideas.
Meanwhile, North Korea continues to remain defiant. It says the latest launch was a meaningful prelude to containing US territory of Guam, and that the launch was to counter US and South Korea military drills.
The delegation strongly rejects those preposterous story fabricated by the United States, South Korea, Japan in their so-called fiction-like presentation, which is designed to shift all responsibility of tensions on the Korean Peninsula to the DPRK.
US and North Korea have been indulging in shrill rhetoric over Pyongyang's weapons program. There has been a sharp escalation of tension since Tuesday when Pyongyang fired a ballistic missile over Japan's northern Hokkaido island, triggering public alerts to take cover. US and allies have been looking to tackle the regime's increased belligerence. However, nothing concrete and effective has come up so far that could deter the Kim regime and its ambitions. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And finally, sports. The fourth ODI of the five-match series between India and Sri Lanka will be played in Colombo today. The visitors will be led by Virat Kohli, while Lasith Malinga will lead the host side. Now, India have already sealed the series by taking an unassailable 3-0 lead. In the third ODI, India beat Sri Lanka by 6 wickets. The match will begin from 2 p.m. onwards. That's it from me and my team in this edition of News. But news and updates continue on Rajya Sabha Television. Thanks so much for watching.